Hello, welcome to the Southern Bible Thumper channel. For this upload, we will be reading 2 Samuel chapter 14. Now Joab, the son of Zeruiah, perceived that the king's heart was toward Absalom, and Joab sent to Tekoa, and fetched thence a wise woman, and said unto her, I pray thee, feign thyself to be a mourner, and put on now mourning apparel, and anoint not thyself with oil, but be as a woman that had a long time mourned for the dead, and come to the king, and speak on this manner unto him. So Joab put the words in her mouth. And when the woman of Tekoa spake to the king, she fell on her face to the ground, and did obeisance, and said, Help, O king. And the king said unto her, What aileth thee? And she answered, I am indeed a widow woman, and mine husband is dead. And thy handmaid had two sons, and they strove together in the field, and there was none to part them. But the one smote the other, and slew him. And behold, the whole family is risen against thine handmaid. And they said, Deliver him that smote his brother, that we may kill him, for the life of his brother, whom he slew, and we will destroy the heir also. And so they shall quench my coal which is left, and shall not leave to my husband neither name nor remainder upon the earth. And the king said unto the woman, Go to thine house, and I will give charge concerning thee. And the woman of Tekoa said unto the king, My lord, O king, the iniquity be on me and on my father's house, and the king and his throne be guiltless. And the king said, Whoever saith aught unto thee, bring him to me, and he shall not touch thee any more. Then said she, I pray thee, let the king remember the Lord thy God, that thou wouldest not suffer the revengers of blood to destroy any more, lest they destroy my son. And he said, As the Lord liveth, there shall not one hair of thy son fall to the earth. Then the woman said, Let thine handmaid, I pray thee, speak one word unto my lord the king. And he said, Say on. And the woman said, Wherefore then hast thou thought such a thing against the people of God? For the king doth speak this thing as one which is faulty, in that the king doth not fetch home again his bandaged. For we must needs die, and are as water spilt on the ground, which cannot be gathered up again. Neither doth God respect any person, yet doth he devise means that his brandished be not expelled from him. Now, therefore, that I am come to speak of this thing unto my lord the king, it is because the people have made me afraid. And my handmaid said, I will now speak unto the king. It may be that the king will perform the request of his handmaid. For the king will hear, to deliver his handmaid out of the hand of the man that would destroy me and my son together, out of the inheritance of God. Then thine handmaid said, The word of my lord the king shall now be comfortable, for as an angel of God, so is my lord the king to discern good and bad. Therefore the Lord thy God will be with thee. Then the king answered and said unto the woman, Hide not from me, I pray thee, the king that I shall ask thee. And the woman said, Let my lord the king now speak. And the king said, Is not the hand of Joab with thee in all this? And the woman answered and said, As thy soul liveth, my lord the king, none can turn to the right hand or to the left from aught that my lord the king hath spoken. For thy servant Joab, he bade me, and he put all these words in the mouth of thine handmaid. To fetch about this form of speech hath thy servant Job done this thing, and my lord is wise, according to the wisdom of an angel of God, to know all things that are in the earth. And the king said unto Joab, Behold, now I have done this thing. Go, therefore, bring the young man Absalom again. And Joab fell to the ground on his face, and bowed himself, and thanked the king. And Joab said, Today thy servant knoweth that I have found grace in thy sight, my lord, O king, in that the king hath fulfilled the request of his servant. So Joab arose and went to Jeshurun, and brought Absalom to Jerusalem. And the king said, Let him turn to his own house, and let him not see my face. So Absalom returned to his own house, and saw not the king's face. But in all Israel there was none to be so much praised as Absalom for his beauty. From the sole of his foot even to the crown of his head there was no blemish in him. And when he pulled his head, for it was at every year's end that he pulled it, because the hair was heavy on him, therefore he pulled it. He weighed the hair of his head at 200 shekels after the king's weight. And unto Absalom there were born 3 sons and 1 daughter, whose name was Tamar. She was a woman of a fair countenance. So Absalom dwelt 2 full years in Jerusalem, and saw not the king's face. Therefore, Absalom sent for Joab to have sent him to the king, but he would not come to him, and when he sent again the second time, he would not come. Therefore, he said unto his servants, See, Joab's field is near mine, and he hath barley there. Go and set it on fire. And Absalom's servants set the field on fire. When Joab arose and came to Absalom unto his house, and said unto him, Wherefore have thy servants set my field on fire? And Absalom answered Joab, Behold, I sent unto thee, saying, Come hither, that I may send thee to the king, to say, Wherefore am I come from Jeshurun? It had been good for me to have been there still. Now, therefore, let me see the king's face, and if there be any iniquity in me, let him kill me. So Joab came to the king and told him. And when he had called for Absalom, he came to the king and bowed himself on his face to the ground before the king, and the king kissed Absalom. In the previous chapter, 2 Samuel 13, David's son sexually assaults his other daughter, Tamar. David's relative, Jonadab, assists in organizing the assault. Absalom, Tamar's brother, has the offender killed. The current chapter, 2 Samuel 14, Joab, David's army captain, finds a woman and has her bring a claim to David to judge. The issue Joab creates is one where a widowed woman has a son that killed his brother. Her family now wants to kill the murderous son. After agreeing to keep the woman's son safe, David finds out Joab orchestrated this decision as a way to legally bring Absalom, David's son, back to the kingdom. Regarding my appearance, is my appearance any worse than a pastor badgering a congregation for $20 and then telling the ushers to stand guard at the doors? How about that same pastor telling the congregation that it costs money to sit in the pulpit? There is no scripture for either one of those actions. What about if the same pastor then makes a song about the situation so that we can laugh? Or he might actually make $20 off the song. Is my appearance worse than that? Where does your belief come from? What demons or angels look like? Movies? Internet? We know that our ideas of beauty changes just from culture to culture. Considering the last chapter, Tamar was assaulted by her brother, and everyone knew, and no one did anything to resolve that situation. And Tamar was the one to live desolate. I thought of it today because you can live through being assaulted, but it's just something off, right? Kind of like not having eyebrows. I mean, you can live without them, but you see how it distorts the person to make them different? When we get to 2 Samuel chapter 14, Absalom is David's son. What happened in the previous chapter? Tamar, who is David's daughter, she was assaulted. She was assaulted by David's other son, Amnon. Absalom, who is her brother, he has Amnon killed, and then he flees. This is after 2 years of David doing nothing and just nothing being done about what happened to Tamar. The Bible says Tamar lived desolate after her assault. So, verse 1, Absalom, after this terrible scenario, he's gone and he lives in a different territory. Joab is David's army captain. He notices how much David misses his son. He devises a plan to get a woman to bring a claim to David, and the claim includes two of her sons uh, getting into an altercation and one killing the other. And her family wants to seek revenge on the son that's still remaining, but because she's a widow and her other son is also gone, taking his life would mean she would have no heir, no one to continue the lineage. The decision on this issue would also relate to his own issue with Absalom. Though David did not banish his son or anything, I'm not quite sure why he decided to leave, because David was comforted in the fact that Amnon was dead, because now he doesn't have to deal with that. And not quite sure why he left if there was no command for him to leave. So Joab gives this woman this claim, and the claims that king or the judgments that these kings give are precedents for the Israelites. So whatever decision that's going to be made about her son that's still alive, that's going to also apply to Absalom. And so then Joab, who is David's army captain, he can use David's precedents to make an argument that this is why Absalom should come back, because look at how you ruled in the favor of this situation. So, verse 1 through 3, that's what we're seeing here. David's army captain, Joab, he sees that David misses his son, gets a woman, and tells her to say these exact words to King David. Verses 4 through 7, the woman understands the plan, goes to David, and pays homage or obeisance by falling face down to the ground. Okay? Help me, Your Majesty. The woman tells David she's a widow, she has two sons, one killed the other in a fight, and now her family wants the life of the remaining son. And this would uh, eliminate the heir, the only heir that she has left. So, verse 8 through 11, the woman's conversation with David continues. She asks for protection, and David tells her to bring anyone who threatens her to him. David vows that nothing will happen to her remaining son. Okay? Verses 12 through 17, I did have a little bit of, maybe this was it. Okay, yes. I had a bit of difficulty with this because the way that I read this the first time, I just had some issues with this. So, may not be perfect. So, she asked to speak to the king. She says the decision to keep her son safe also applies to his own family. The king has not brought back his own banished one. We will certainly die and be poured out, but God would not take away lives. He would devise plans so that the one banished does not remain banished. So then she says 15 to 17. So now that this applies to your situation, I thought to bring my claim to you, because the king will certainly listen to me. You are uh, you are able to discern the good from evil, like the angel of God. May the Lord God be with you. So she's buttering him up a little bit at the end there, because now he realizes from verses 18 to 20. Did Joab tell you to do this? She says, yes, Lord. 21 to 24. David ends speaking to the woman and he starts speaking to Joab. He's addressing him in verse 21. He's saying, I grant this request, bring back my son Absalom. Joab then makes obeisance or homage. It's a gesture to honor uh, David. Falls to the ground. I'm glad I found favor with you. And Joab is happy. He gets Absalom. And when Absalom gets home, David tells him, I don't want, or David tells Joab, I don't want to see him. So Absalom returns to Jerusalem in the kingdom, but he doesn't see the king. Verses 25 and 26. Verse 25 and 26, or 25 to 27, we learn that Absalom is beautiful from the sole of his foot to the top of his head, no flaws. He had heavy hair. The sons born to him, he had 3 sons, and he had a daughter named Tamar. So the woman, his sister, she was assaulted in the previous chapter. Absalom names his daughter after her, Tamar. Absalom lives in Jerusalem 2 years, never sees the king. So Absalom sends a messenger to Joab asking him to bring him to the king, allow the king to let him see him. And Joab would not answer him. So after the second time, Absalom requests Joab's response and Joab ignores him. Absalom sends his servant to burn one of Joab's crops fields. So his servant sets the field on fire. Joab demands Absalom's response. Why did you do this? Absalom says, well, you didn't respond to me. Help me see the king. If I'm guilty, let him kill me. Verse 33, Joab went to the king and told him that Absalom wanted to see him. So David summoned Absalom and paid homage. Well, Absalom paid homage. Absalom's the one who came, fell with his face on the ground, all that. And the king embraces him. Now, this is really important because in the next chapter, we're going to see Absalom. He's going to try to do a hostile takeover on the kingdom. But this is giving us a clue on how things work with the king. The king is the one who makes decisions on issues. Also, you don't just go to the king, you have to send a messenger to ask the king, can you see him? And then the king will tell you when it's appropriate for you to come. So just want to point that out because we're going to see that in the next chapter. The other thing that I just wanted to point out, okay, we see how many times obeisance is being made to King David. So Joab made obeisance after, Absalom made obeisance, meaning obeisance is just a movement, a gesture of submission or respect. So we see here Absalom, who is David's own son, made obeisance, falling with his face to the ground. Joab made obeisance, okay, in verse 22, with his face in the ground. The woman who came to talk to the king, okay, she made obeisance, paid homage, falling with her face to the ground. So this is how people are talking to David, who is the king. When we look at this part, this is 1 Samuel 25. This is when, before David became anointed or accepted by all of Israel as the king of all Israel. In this chapter, he's still fleeing King Saul, who is hunting him to kill him. And when we look at how Abigail talked to David, this is when David needed resources. He provided protection to a rich man's servants. And when he asked this rich man, can we have some food? He was disrespectful. So the man's wife, Abigail, saw David, and in an effort to quell his anger, she bowed herself to the ground and fell at his feet. Upon me, my lord, let this iniquity be. When we look at Judges chapter 1 and we look at how people speak to God, Judges chapter 1 is so significant because God did not appoint a leader. The only leaders that we've had so far were Moses and Joshua. Judges chapter 1 Israel has successfully entered into the promised land, and that's where they're living now. When Joshua dies, there is no leader. So, Judges chapter 1, the children of Israel ask the Lord directly. There is no obeisance. There is none of this flowery language, this, oh, upon me, my Lord, let my iniquity be unto me. No, they just went to God directly and said, who shall go up for us against the Canaanites first? And the Lord responded. This is just really significant because now we have kings that everyone has to fall upon their face for. When God appointed leadership, he didn't have that. You didn't even have to come to God like that. 1 Samuel chapter 23. This is David before he becomes king of all Israel. He's still fleeing King Saul. This is 1 Samuel chapter 23. This is before Saul's death. So as David is fleeing, he inquired of the Lord, or he asked God a question directly. Shall I go and smite these Philistines? He asked God directly. There is no obeisance. There is no falling on my face. Okay? This is one of my favorite chapters to reference when it comes to the relationship that is available with God. Genesis chapter 25. This is Rebecca. When she was pregnant with twins, and her pregnancy was difficult. And she said, if it be, why am I thus? And she went to ask a God. And the very next verse, God says to her, is two nations in your womb. And we see that now. Jacob is the forefather of the Israelites, and Esau is the forefather of Edom, the Edomites. Two different peoples. The one time that I honestly feel like we see obeisance or super someone honoring God to talk to him, with all the fluff, Genesis 18. This is Abraham. Okay. So, and this is Genesis 19 is Sodom and Gomorrah. So in Genesis 18, God says he's about to destroy the city. You know what I mean? He says, Abraham says, will you also destroy the righteous with the wicked? Peradventure, there be 50 righteous. That be far from thee to do after this manner, to slay the righteous with the wicked. Okay, so there's all this fluff. He's not just saying, God, why? He's saying a whole lot of stuff. Though this is before, Israel. This is before Jacob. So this is the relationship that Abraham has with God. We look at verse 27. If you just read Genesis 18:26 on down, how Abraham talks to God. Behold, now I've taken upon me to speak unto the Lord, peradventure. He even says, where is he? Yeah, verse 27. Behold, now I've taken upon me to speak, which am but dust and ashes. He's really laying it on thick there to talk to God. But this idea of making obedience, falling to the face, making sure you say just the right thing to this one person, that didn't exist with God. That didn't happen until after we start having these kings. And now these kings want to be reverenced in a specific manner. When people don't even go to God and act like this, they don't fall to their face before God. Every time someone talked to David in this chapter, they fell to their face to talk to David. Not saying people don't deserve their respect, not saying leaders don't deserve their respect, but it's just something to consider when people talk to God, how they just inquire of him and just, hey, what should I do? That's all I have for this chapter. I love you.